cool. So what's up, everybody? My name is William Orgetrice. Currently, I'm working at a company called Cargill. It is a privately held company, ranked in the top 15 privately held companies in the United States. And we impact billions of people on a daily basis. So I'm a data engineer there. I've been a data engineer for coming up to 6 years. Raise your hand if you know what a data engineer is. Kinda. All right, so the simple way of saying it is that I move data from one place to the other.
He code for me, yo. Build pipelines, moving code.
Yes, yes. I always like to say, like, the pipeline process is, think of Amazon as an example. Amazon, whenever you put in a request for an order, Amazon takes in that request, makes sure that everything is correct, sends that information to their packagers, and they send it to the vendors, and then they put it in a nice box for you, tell the people where to ship it to, and bring it up to your home address or wherever you send it, and everything that's inside that box should be exactly as you ordered. Yeah. So that's essentially what a data engineer does in simple, relatable terms. Yeah. All right, so I want to kind of tell you guys about how I got started and where I am in my career journey. I know a lot of people are looking for jobs, and I know you guys are here at Clayton State, so you probably are still working on your degrees or trying to get more graduate level degrees. So for me, when I first started, my dad got me into it. My dad, he has 30 years in as a police officer, the Fulton County Police Department, but he worked in IT. And when I was in high school, I was asking him, okay, well, how should I go forward? Like, what should I do with my life? And he told me to look for the jobs that make the most money. Of course, doctor, lawyer, and then it came up with engineer. So that's what I chose because it had one of the best return on investments based off of, you can get a 4-year degree. You don't necessarily need to, but you can get a 4-year degree, or you can go to a boot camp, or you can be self-taught. But at that time, the average was $115,000 per year that you could make. So I said, okay, let me go ahead and go that route. Went to Georgia State University, and I majored in computer science. Computer science is more of a theoretical degree, but they did also have CIS, Computer Information Systems, which is a little bit of computer science, do some coding, but then you also have the business side of things. So I chose computer science, and I graduated with my degree in databases and knowledge-based systems. And then that helped me to get my internship at Global Payments, which is a Fortune 500 company in the payment processing space. And so you probably interact with it whenever you swipe your credit card or debit card. If you ever go to the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, they use Global Payments. And I had 2 internships with them, which helped me to get further jobs. My first internship was a software development intern, and my second one was an information security advisory intern. Just kind of get some experience with both software engineering and cybersecurity. After my internships ended with them, I moved on to the Home Depot, and I was a contractor with them for 7 months. And my title was a software developer, but I was doing mostly data engineering on a DevOps team. So DevOps, if you guys aren't familiar, or raise your hand if you're familiar with what DevOps is. Yes, okay. So for people who may not know, DevOps is, think about it like you work on the full software development lifecycle. So you're working on the creation of the requirements, you're working on the actual coding, you're working on the deployment of your code, sustaining it and maintaining it, and you do have to take, some DevOps teams do like a rotational period. So you may need to get on the phone late at night or something like that if something goes wrong. So you're always trying to make sure that if your code breaks, you are there to make sure that the infrastructure still works, okay? So there's a lot of different things you have to do with a DevOps team, but it gives you a great amount of experience. So if you are interested in coding or anything like that, or the infrastructure side of things, DevOps is a good way to go as well. Data engineering, I love it. It's a passion of mine because I feel as though I have a lot of impact with the work that I do. And regardless of whatever role you have, you should always feel like, hey, this is an impactful role, because think about it, these companies are making millions upon millions of dollars, sometimes billions of dollars, and they're putting you in the seat. They're giving you the keys to be able to maintain that. So if you make any mistakes, you could potentially cost the company millions of dollars. But if you help them, right, if you are somebody who follows the best practices, listens and asks for help, you could potentially make the company more than millions of dollars or billions of dollars, right? Because they will ask you to do certain features that could potentially generate more income for the business. Another thing is that a lot of the other business processes, so people who are in project management or people who are software developers working on the front end, if you are interested in front end development, UI, UX designers. I always say it like this: if you ever go to Facebook and then you go in there, you see your feed, you see your profile picture, all the information relating to you, none of that stuff would show up if the information was not there. So if the data engineer were to not build that pipeline out for the information to show up, it doesn't matter how pretty the website would look, it would not have anything on there. Nothing would generate. You would just have like the front page that's statically updated, but none of your information will be there. And so it's very important to the business to have a data engineer. With that, there's a whole bunch of different roles that all come together to make things work. So you have your UI, UX, you have your front-end developers, you have your cybersecurity team, you have project managers, scrum masters. There's so many different people that come together to make all of this work. So as an example, when I worked at the Home Depot, we had the data engineers that worked on all the information that we would send to our vendors. So whenever you go into Home Depot, you go inside, or if you go on the website, we track all that information. And then when we track all the information, we send that information to like our advertisers, our vendors, people who are selling all these different tools within the Home Depot. Well, they use that to be able to make different decisions. And you'll probably hear something called data-driven decisions. Mm-hmm. One of the things I like to tell people is that you gotta have a $1 billion mindset. Just in case if something were to go wrong, it could cost the company billions of dollars. So that's why when I bring up working with best practices, that also comes into mind with the cybersecurity things. Making sure that you're not just putting anything into your code. Yeah. Making sure that, hey, if you're just pulling up some code from people in a garage or something like that, you don't know who the person is, you may not want to bring that into your code base because that could break the company. All right. After I left from Home Depot, I moved on to Randstad which is a global staffing agency. And we're in multiple different countries, but our headquarters is here in Atlanta, Georgia. If you go on 75, it's right over there by Cumberland Mall and Main Event. And I was working there for 4 years. So I was working to help people to get jobs, working on their ATS system, the applicant tracking system. And when I'm working on like the new features that can help people, like really the recruiters be able to find talent. So whenever you get a message on LinkedIn, which I suggest everybody go on, update your LinkedIn, so that way you are considered an all-star. That's what you want. And people will reach out to you through an applicant tracking system. That's how they get your information. And that's how they will provide opportunities for you. So that's essentially what you want. I would rather a recruiter, what you would call them a sourcer, reach out to me than me having to fill out hundreds of applications every single day, right? Or every single week or month that you can do.
Every single day.
But just like I say, I want people to come to me with the opportunities because of the work that I've been able to do. So, and because I've worked with the applicant tracking system internally, I understand how it works, how the resume is supposed to be formatted, how, some of the things that you may see on TikTok and Instagram when they're telling you to put white text underneath your other words, that stuff will mess up the applicant tracking system. You'll actually get put into the no pile following a lot of the things that you may see on social media. So if you are somebody who's trying to get a job, I would suggest to avoid mass applying and spraying and praying and go for something that is more tailored to your resume or your skill set. Because right now, especially since the job market is so brutal right now, you have so many companies that are just doing skill-based hiring. So if you are trying to get, let's say, a master's degree, so if you're going for a master's degree, make sure that you can set up your resume in such a way that your skills that you learn when you get your master's align with what the job description is asking for. Because what will happen is you'll say, hey, I have a master's degree, I have my education, but you have no skills to back it up. They aren't going to look at you, despite going through all those years of schooling. So if you do get a master's degree, work on projects. And what I always tell people is to build with a purpose. Sometimes people can build a project that you saw on YouTube, or you paid for a course and you follow that project. What I would say is, if you're trying to build something with a purpose, make it so that way people care about it. Tell people the impact of what you did and what you built. I remember I went to a meetup event and this guy was working on this AI model that is supposed to help researchers be able to find different diseases. And the way he talked about it was so low, like despite that being something revolutionary.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, well, this is something that could generate a lot of money for people. But he talked about it like, oh, it's no big deal. And what I want people to understand is that life in general and people in general was sometimes try to little you. And that's what I always say. They try to little you. Oh, you're a little accomplishment, or you're a little YouTube channel, or you're a little this. Start talking big about the things that you do and the accomplishments that you've been able to make. When I tell you guys about the places I worked, I tell them like, oh, this is a Fortune 500 company. This is ranked in the top 15 of this. They work with so many different countries. They impact billions of people on a daily basis. I have to start talking big, because if I go into the interview and I tell them, oh yeah, I used to work at this small startup that didn't really do much of anything, and I didn't work on any big projects. If you tell them that, they most likely will not be able to get the job.
Yeah.
And the things that you work on have to follow the skills that they're looking for. So, the resume tip for everybody is that the skills that you have on your resume drive everything that is on your resume. So you write out your skills. I always suggest, if you already have some experience, put your skills closer to the top. Then when you get to your professional summary, every single skill that you have has to show up in that professional experience, a relevant professional experience. Because if you have some skills up there that you can't display that you've used, how can I know that you know how to use it? What did you use it for? Right? You put up all these different skills and technologies and everything else, and now I have no clue where it was applied, how impactful it was. Where were you in your life when you used it? Was it a long time ago when you used this? I remember I worked on Java. I learned Java throughout my whole Georgia State career. And then my first job at Home Depot was using Java. Many years later, if I put Java on my skills, they're gonna be looking at me like, well, it was about like 5, almost 6 years ago when you used it. Is this even relevant to where you are right now. So that's what you gotta see, is that your skills are gonna be able to make or break your career. Okay, and always be learning, but you have to learn with a purpose. Look at the job description, see what skills that they're looking for, and then if you can, either maybe take a boot camp, or take a course, or what I always suggest, go on YouTube University and learn something new, right? One thing I wanted to bring up is that in life, you'll realize that nobody wants to get on the train that isn't moving. So what I always suggest people to do is to get active. I'll tell you guys a quick story, is that I run a YouTube channel called BeforeTheBillions, teaching people, giving people genuine advice on how to get into tech. And I've been doing this for 4 years. And when I got laid off from my job from Ronstadt, I made a video. I said, I was laid off as a data engineer, and I made a series out of it. And a few months in, I just kept telling people, giving people updates. Okay, this is where I'm going, I'm applying, I'm doing this, I'm going to these networking events. And then I just ramped things up. I kept going to these events, I kept going to conferences, I kept meeting new people. I put myself out there, I started making more and more content on LinkedIn, and people started to notice it and started to gain traction. People started to give me opportunities, and people started to invite me to things. And I started to get a little bit further in my job search. Because I'm gonna tell you, is that I was laid off for 6 months, and everybody felt like telling me no, right? And people's inclination is to say no initially. But what I kept doing is I kept showing that I had the skills. And the more people who realized who I was, the more content I made. I eventually was reached out to by a recruiter from Cargill. And at first they didn't say anything much. They said, oh, I'm just trying to meet people in the Atlanta area. I'm just, trying to meet some people, that's all it is. I'm just trying to learn how to lay of the land. And they reached out to me on LinkedIn. And I connected with them. A few weeks later, I made a post about my personal branding and my professional branding. And I made the post about how you can do volunteering, you can go to the networking events, you can do all these things to build your personal brand. And I said, this is the correlation between your personal and your professional brand. The recruiter liked that post so much that they said, hey, I saw your post, I feel like I know you. We have a position that's open for a data engineer, and I want you to apply for it. So I did the interview, and I didn't apply for a job at that time. They said, hey, I'm gonna set up an interview for you. And I did so well in the interview, they really liked me. So they said, hey, I'm gonna talk to you about this. Cargill has these benefits packages, they have this bonus structure, they have, what kind of compensation are you looking for? And I said, okay, this sounds pretty good. So now I said, hey, I would be interested in this type of offer. Then they said, okay, great. Well, now I'm gonna send you a private link because we opened up a role for you. They sent it to me, I applied to it, and then they gave me the offer the very next day. So I'm gonna tell you is that if you get active and show people how important you are, talk big about your accomplishments, even through 6 months of no jobs and a whole bunch of people telling me no and a whole bunch of people doubting me and doubting my abilities, I was able to achieve and overcome. Since then, during that 6 months, I've been featured in Business Insider, I've been featured in Shout Out Atlanta, Forbes BOK, I've been featured in the Urban League Greater Atlanta for young professionals, and I've also gone to several different conferences like Google Cloud Next in Las Vegas, where it was paid for completely for free because I just kept showing up. So through all of those different actions, with a purpose, I was able to achieve my goal. And I want to kind of end this off and say that nothing is stronger than a person's desire. Right? If you go out there, learn with a purpose, build with a purpose, and understand that nobody wants to jump on the train that isn't moving, and get active, you'll be able to achieve your goals. I appreciate you guys for having me up here today.